Imagine waking up one day and realizing that nearly everything you've believed about your place in the world was a carefully crafted illusion, not a conspiracy born in the shadows, but a system built in plain sight, refined over generations, whispered into your thoughts, injected into your choices, and stamped upon your identity. What if I told you that the greatest lie ever sold is not a headline or a policy, not a politician's speech or a media spin, but something far more subtle and far more dangerous? That this lie is so embedded into the fabric of our reality, we mistake it for truth, we defend it, we build our lives around it, and in doing so, we willingly surrender our autonomy, our purpose, and even our happiness. In this video, we're going to unravel that lie. And more importantly, we'll explore how society has quietly learned to control not just our behaviors, but our beliefs, our dreams, and the very way we see ourselves. This journey will take us from ancient philosophical reflections to the cutting-edge insights of modern psychology and sociology. And at the end, I'll reveal the most powerful truth of all, one that could shatter the illusion and free your mind. But you must stay with me until the end, because the final revelation is not only the most important, it's the one they never wanted you to hear. Let's begin. It starts innocently. You're born into a world that's already in motion. By the time you can speak, you're surrounded by language, norms, expectations. You're told what's good and what's bad, what's acceptable and what's shameful. Your mind, still tender and open, begins to absorb it all. You don't question it. You don't yet know how. By the time you go to school, the machinery is already running. You're taught to obey, to sit still, to follow instructions. You're rewarded not for questioning, but for compliance. You're praised when you conform, correct when you stray. From grading systems to behavioral charts, you are conditioned, subtly but consistently, to seek validation from authority. Renowned psychologist B.F. Skinner once demonstrated how behavioral reinforcement could shape not just actions, but identities. Society took note. Today, this method is not locked away in laboratories. It's in classrooms, workplaces, even in your social media feed. The likes you chase, the trends you follow, the outrage you echo, they all feed a cycle of external validation. But have you ever stopped to ask, who decides what is worthy of approval? This is where the lie begins to take form, that your value is determined by how well you fit into the system, that your success is measured not by your fulfillment, but by your productivity, that your identity is a product of your profession, your appearance, your possessions. From billboards to textbooks, the message is consistent. Be what we expect, and you will be rewarded. But what happens when you don't fit? What happens when your spirit whispers truths that contradict the narrative? Most people suppress that voice. They fear rejection, ridicule, or worse, irrelevance. Philosopher Michel Foucault wrote extensively on the concept of social control, not through force but through normalization. Society doesn't need to chain you, it just needs to define what's normal. Once that standard is accepted, anyone outside it is labeled deviant, dangerous, or broken. Have you ever felt like you're living someone else's life? That you're chasing goals you didn't choose? That your passions were buried under expectations long ago? That discomfort is your true self stirring beneath the surface. And here's where the deception deepens. Society convinces you that your dissatisfaction is your fault. That if you're unhappy, it's because you're not trying hard enough, not thinking positively enough, not grinding, hustling, or manifesting correctly. The system deflects responsibility, keeping you trapped in a cycle of self-blame. But let's pause here and ask, who benefits from this arrangement? When you're insecure, corporations sell you products. When you're obedient, institutions maintain power. When you believe you're free, but act only within the boundaries they've drawn, you become the perfect citizen, the ideal consumer, the manageable mind. Sociologist Erich Fromm once warned that modern freedom is often an illusion. In his book Escape from Freedom, he explained how people willingly trade true liberty for security, order, and belonging. They submit to systems of control, not because they are forced to, but because they've been conditioned to see control as comfort. Does this resonate with you? Have you ever felt that quiet voice saying, "This isn't who I am," and then silenced it because you were afraid of what others would say? You're not alone. Millions live this way, trapped in a well-decorated prison, clapping along with the rhythm of a song they never chose. But here's the twist. The lie works precisely because it doesn't feel like a lie. It feels like truth, like culture, like tradition. It feels like safety. That's what makes it so powerful and so difficult to escape. And yet, escape is possible. In the next part of this journey, we will explore how this system of quiet control was built, from the roots of organized religion to the birth of mass media and the digital age. We'll uncover how belief systems are engineered and how even our sense of morality can be manipulated. If this first revelation stirred something inside you, stay with me. What comes next will challenge everything you think you know about the world around you, because only by seeing the cage can you begin to escape it. You were not born into freedom. You were born into a blueprint, a script already written, a stage already set. To understand how society quietly controls you, we must first peel back the layers of history and examine the roots of this system. Not through the lens of conspiracy, but through the lens of psychology, power, and influence. Centuries ago, the earliest forms of societal control were explicit. Kingdoms ruled by divine right, religions claiming authority over souls, empires expanding by sword and decree. In those times, control came through fear. Disobedience meant punishment, even death. The lines were clear, the consequences immediate. But as civilizations evolved, so did their methods. Overt oppression gave way to subtle manipulation. Control moved from the battlefield into the mind. The philosopher Plato warned us through his famous allegory of the cave that people often mistake shadows for reality. They live shackled, facing the wall, believing that the flickers they see are all there is. The moment one breaks free and sees the light, he is ridiculed, feared, rejected by those still trapped. Society in this allegory is the cave. And the lie? It's the belief that the cave is all there is. Control today is more sophisticated than ever. It no longer needs chains, it uses stories. Stories are how we understand the world. From childhood fables to national myths, from Hollywood blockbusters to political narratives, stories shape our values, our fears, our hopes. The more a story is repeated, the more it feels like truth. Take, for example, the myth of meritocracy, the belief that if you simply work hard enough, you will succeed. On the surface, this sounds empowering, but beneath it lies a dangerous implication. If you don't succeed, it must be your fault. This story justifies inequality, masks systemic injustice, and shames those who suffer. It's a narrative used not to uplift, but to pacify. Political scientist Noam Chomsky, in his groundbreaking work Manufacturing Consent, explained how media serves as a propaganda tool, not by fabricating facts, but by shaping the framework within which we interpret them. The control isn't in what you're told, it's in what you're never allowed to question. And then came the screen. Television and later the internet transformed this dynamic. Never before had so many minds been exposed to the same images, sounds, and ideas simultaneously. Mass media became the most powerful tool of narrative control. It didn't just report the culture, it created it. Ask yourself, how much of what you believe about success, love, identity, even happiness, comes from stories told by people you've never met? You see celebrities smiling in mansions and think, that's what life should look like. You see curated feeds of flawless lives and think, why doesn't mine look like that? This isn't just envy, it's programming. You're being taught what to want. Even the idea of individuality has been commodified. You are encouraged to express yourself, so long as it fits within the approved boxes. Be unique but not disruptive. Be authentic but not inconvenient. Psychologist Carl Jung spoke of the collective unconscious, the shared reservoir of symbols, archetypes, and patterns that bind human experience. Society has learned to exploit this, turning sacred human desires, belonging, purpose, transformation into products. Spirituality becomes branding. Activism becomes trend. Rebellion becomes a fashion line. The result? A culture where the illusion of choice replaces actual freedom. Consider this. When you vote, are you choosing a future or picking between two versions of the same machine? When you scroll, are you discovering your interests or being guided by an algorithm that knows you better than you know yourself? These are not rhetorical questions. They're invitations. Invitations to reflect on how deeply the strings of control reach into your thoughts, your habits, your emotions. One of the most overlooked aspects of this control is the manipulation of language. Words carry power. They define how we think. George Orwell, in his prophetic novel 1984, illustrated how language could be weaponized through newspeak, a reduced, sanitized vocabulary designed to eliminate critical thought. When you cannot express rebellion, you cannot imagine it. Today we face a subtler version. Terms like collateral damage instead of civilian death, downsizing instead of mass layoffs, influencer instead of advertiser. Language is sanitized to protect power, and when people push back through protest, dissent, or creative expression, they are labeled as extremists, radicals, or unstable. But here's the truth they don't want you to realize. You have always had the power to break free. The mind, once awakened, cannot be easily silenced. And that's why the final and most insidious layer of control is internalized repression. After years of conditioning, you begin to police yourself. You dismiss your dreams. You silence your intuition. You fear your own truth. Not because someone told you to, but because you've learned to tell yourself. It is here in the space between truth and belief that the lie thrives. So I ask you again, whose dreams are you chasing? Whose fears are you carrying? Whose approval are you dying to receive? The journey of liberation begins not by changing the world, but by questioning the world within you. And that's exactly where we're going next. In the upcoming segment, we'll dive into the mechanisms of self-censorship, identity conditioning, and the psychological traps that keep you docile. You'll learn how to identify the subtle signs of internalized control, and more importantly, how to break them. This is where theory meets transformation, where awareness becomes action. If you felt a stirring in your soul, a quiet rebellion rising, don't ignore it. It's not madness, it's memory. The memory of who you were before the world told you who to be. Stay with me, because what comes next is not only empowering, it's the beginning of your freedom. You see, the most dangerous prison is the one you carry inside your own mind. It's the subtle, invisible force that shapes your decisions, your relationships, and even your self-worth. It's the internalized conditioning that keeps you loyal to a system you may not even fully understand. And here's the hard truth. We are all conditioned. It starts the moment we're born. Society doesn't just shape how we behave. It shapes how we think about ourselves and the world around us. It teaches us what we are allowed to believe, who we are allowed to be, and where we are allowed to go. It is the invisible hand that controls your desires, your fears, and ultimately your freedom. Psychologists call this self-censorship, the process by which we internalize societal norms to the point that we regulate ourselves. We've been taught to avoid certain thoughts, ideas, and desires, often without even knowing it. This type of control is subtle. It doesn't come from an external force imposing limits. It comes from within. You've been taught to suppress your rebellious impulses, your unconventional desires, your raw, untamed essence, all in the name of fitting in, of being normal, of being accepted. But let's step back for a moment. What does it even mean to be normal? Normalcy is a construct. It's not an inherent truth. It's a set of expectations created by those in power to maintain stability, to ensure that everyone operates within a predictable system. The idea of normality has been so deeply embedded in our collective psyche that many don't even question it. We are taught from an early age that to be normal is to be safe, to be accepted, and to avoid the consequences of standing out. But here's the twist. When you conform to society's expectations, when you suppress your true self to fit the mold, you forfeit your freedom. You lose the ability to truly live, to experience life on your own terms. In essence, you become a character in someone else's story, and yet, we all have an innate longing to break free from this. Deep inside, you know that the life you've been told to live is not the one that aligns with your deepest desires. But just like the prisoners in Plato's cave, we are so used to the shadows on the wall that the truth seems alien, uncomfortable, and even frightening. The power of self-censorship lies in the fact that it operates at such a deep level that you often don't even recognize it. It's like a veil over your consciousness, a veil that distorts your perception of yourself and your potential. You might hear the whispers of your true self, those quiet yearnings for freedom, for authenticity, but you silence them because they don't align with what society has told you is acceptable. Think about it. How often have you dismissed a dream or desire because you thought it was too risky, too impossible, or too unconventional? How many times have you told yourself that's just not how things are done, and buried your true feelings in favor of conformity? This internal conflict is one of the most insidious forms of control. It's not just about society telling you what to do, it's about you telling yourself what you can't do based on the stories you've been fed. And the more you suppress those desires, the more disconnected you become from who you truly are. But what if I told you that the first step to breaking free is to reclaim your mind? Reclaiming your mind means actively challenging those self-imposed limits, those invisible barriers that have been built by years of conditioning. It means questioning everything you've been taught to believe about yourself, your worth, and your potential. It's about asking, is this my truth, or is it a truth that has been imposed upon me? Here's where it gets interesting. The mind is malleable. Psychology has long recognized that humans are not fixed beings. We have the power to change, to evolve, and to break free from the constraints of our conditioning. But this change doesn't happen passively. It requires conscious effort, courage, and the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine you've been taught your whole life that success equals wealth. Society bombards you with messages that being rich is the ultimate achievement. You work hard, climb the corporate ladder, sacrifice your time, your energy, and your peace of mind, all in the pursuit of money. But somewhere deep inside you feel a sense of emptiness. You have the job, the house, the car, but there's something missing. You feel unfulfilled. Why? Because you've been conditioned to believe that success equals wealth, but you've never questioned whether wealth is what truly brings you happiness. The first step in reclaiming your mind is to stop, breathe, and ask yourself, what do I really want? This isn't just a rhetorical question. This is a question of self-awareness. It's about becoming conscious of the narratives you've internalized, the beliefs that you've absorbed from society, from your family, from your peers, and deciding which ones still serve you and which ones are simply holding you back. The truth is that society wants you to believe you have to earn your right to happiness, success, and fulfillment. But what if those things aren't rewards for conformity? What if they are your birthright? The great existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote that existence precedes essence. In other words, you are not defined by what society tells you to be. You are defined by the choices you make. You have the freedom to choose who you want to be, what you want to do, and how you want to live. But to make those choices, you must first become conscious of the lies that have been sold to you. You must begin to question everything you've been taught, everything you've been led to believe. In the next segment, we will dive into how society perpetuates this system of control through the manipulation of desire, fear, and identity. I'll show you how these forces work together to keep you in a perpetual state of longing, always chasing something but never truly satisfied. Stay with me. We're only beginning to uncover the layers of this illusion, and the most powerful truths are yet to come. As we continue to peel back the layers, you might be beginning to see the truth. The control society exerts over you is not just external, it's deeply internalized. It's a system designed to perpetuate itself, one that keeps you in a perpetual state of yearning, of wanting, but never truly reaching fulfillment. In this final segment, we are going to explore how desire, fear, and identity work together to keep you trapped in this cycle. This is the final piece of the puzzle, the key that will unlock your understanding of the forces that have shaped your life and the world around you. Let's start with desire. From the moment we're born, we are taught what to desire. Society doesn't just tell us what we should have, it tells us how we should feel about what we have. The desires we have are not solely our own. They are carefully crafted by those who understand the power of influence. Think about it. How much of what you desire, whether it's the latest phone, the ideal body, or even the life you think you should have, comes from external sources? Advertisements, social media influencers, even the people around you. Everyone is selling you an image of what you should want. The truth is, desire is a powerful tool of control. When you are constantly chasing something outside of yourself, you are never content. You are always reaching for the next thing, the next success, the next possession, convinced that once you obtain it, you'll finally be happy. But it's a lie. True fulfillment doesn't come from what you have, it comes from who you are. This brings us to fear. Fear is the ultimate enforcer of control. It's the shadow that follows you every step of the way. Fear keeps you obedient. Fear keeps you small. Fear keeps you from stepping outside the lines. Fear is the mechanism by which society ensures you stay within the boundaries of what is acceptable. Think about all the times you've been afraid to speak your truth because of what others might think. How many times have you held back from pursuing a dream because you feared failure? Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. These are the weapons used to keep you in line. But here's the thing. Fear is a construct. It's not an inherent part of who you are. It's something that has been cultivated within you by society. Fear is a tool used to manipulate your actions and prevent you from stepping outside the prescribed path. And finally, identity. Who are you, really? Are you the person society has told you to be? Are you the sum of the roles you've been assigned, student, employee, parent, citizen? Or are you something deeper, something more authentic than what the world has allowed you to believe? Society has taught you that your worth is tied to your roles, your possessions, your achievements. But true identity is not something that can be defined by external measures. Your identity is not a product of what you do. It is a reflection of who you are at your core. The control lies in convincing you that your identity is a static, fixed thing, that it is defined by your past, by your job, by your relationships, by your accomplishments. But in reality, your identity is fluid, it is dynamic, and it is constantly evolving. The key to breaking free from this illusion of control is to embrace the truth of your identity as something beyond society's definitions. You are not your job. You are not your income. You are not your possessions. You are the awareness that experiences them. So how do you break free? The first step is awareness. You must recognize that the control you've experienced is not natural. It is learned. It is imposed. And most importantly, it is not permanent. The second step is reclamation, reclaiming your mind, your desires, your identity, and your truth. This means breaking free from the stories that have been told to you and writing your own. It means embracing discomfort, standing in your truth, and letting go of the need for external validation. And finally, the third step is action, the courage to live your truth, to choose a life that is authentically yours, free from the limitations placed upon you. This isn't about rejecting society. It's about no longer allowing society to define who you are. It's about choosing to live a life that is aligned with your deepest values, your true desires, and your own vision of success. You have the power to break free from the greatest lie ever sold. You have the power to live authentically, to reclaim your freedom, to rewrite your story. The world has convinced you that you must conform, that you must obey, that you must fit into a mold. But the truth is that you are not a product of the system. You are the creator of your own reality. The choice is yours. Are you ready to step into your power? Are you ready to break free from the lies and live a life that is truly your own? It all begins with the awareness that the greatest lie ever sold is the one you've been telling yourself. That you are limited, that you are small, that you are confined by the expectations of others. The truth is that you are limitless. And the moment you realize this, truly realize it, you will be free. Thank you for joining me on this journey. The path ahead is yours to walk, and it begins with the choice to see beyond the veil. Will you take the first step? Thanks for looking.